Today's practice is Yin Yoga for the hips. When I'm thinking about the hips, I'm thinking about this area of the femur bone. And let me just kind of talk to you a little bit about what I think of the mandala of the hip. So we have this big juicy bone and we have a lot of muscles that support the hip socket. And what we're going to look at today is getting into the inner thigh area, the front of the hip here, the outside line of the leg, and then the back of the leg. So we're going to be working our way around the mandala. And we have a short period of time to do it. So the poses are going to be kind of 3 or 4 minutes in each area. And I want you to really tune in and focus. Where are the parts of your body that feel really, really good today? Start with that as your focus point, and then think about where are the areas that can feel like there's a little bit of space that needs to arrive into the tissues. And then notice as we move from one leg to the other, if one side is carrying tension in certain areas and yet the other side feels really free and liberated, okay? Just to build a little bit of self-awareness from the practice itself today. And we're going to start in a seated position today. So often we start lying down. So I want you to grab a cushion or a block and just bring one of those underneath your bottom and join me in a comfortable seat just for a moment here. Okay, can be cross legs, can be sitting on your shins, however comfortable looks for you today. And let's take our palms to face downward, palms facing down. And there's a little lifting of the chest. The collarbone is nice and broad. The belly is soft and relaxed. And once you're in that comfortable place, just close your eyes. Let it be a gentle touching of the eyelashes, the upper and lower eyelid against each other. And there's this welcoming of softness into all of those tissues and muscles around the face here. Softening the space in between the eyebrows and around the outside corners of the eyes. A little smile coming onto your lips, which softens around the corners of the mouth. Take a moment to notice where your tongue is, and if it's resting in the roof of the mouth, can you gently invite it to relax away? And notice how that relaxation around the tongue and the jaw gives you this feeling of ease around the neck, around the shoulders. And just notice how it feels to be here without any effort, any need to be anywhere else. And see if you can take a moment to just let go of any attachment to the things that you were doing before this moment in time. Can you let go of any thinking about things that might come later? We spend so much of our time racing back in time, thinking about how things were, and then racing into the future, thinking about how things might be. And I want you to just notice how it feels to be here in this moment, without any need to be anywhere else. And as you settle into this moment, as you arrive into the here and now, just start to notice the breath. And just saying to yourself as you breathe in, I'm aware that I am breathing in. And saying to yourself as you breathe out, I'm aware that I am breathing out. And as you breathe in, just notice this general feeling of space arriving into the chest, around the heart, the lungs. And as you breathe out, notice how those areas that expanded just slowly start to come back towards center. You might even notice as you inhale, there's this feeling of lifting and lengthening through the spine. And as you exhale, see if you can hold on to that length in the spine and just slowly let everything release when the moment is right. 2 more breaths like this. I'm aware that I am breathing in. I'm aware that I'm breathing out. Last one. And when that breath is complete, just notice how you feel, your mood, your energy. Notice how your state of mind is, and notice how the breath, the natural breath, feels. A little slower, a little deeper, a little calmer than when we first closed our eyes, when we first sat down together. And let's keep this feeling of calmness, stillness with us as we move into the practice itself. So gently start to open the eyes from wherever you are. And as you open the eyes, lift the bottom, release whatever you were sitting on, and just have your props within reach. Okay, so have your props within reach. We're going to guide the soles of our feet together. And the knees are going to draw down to the side, coming into butterfly pose. And I like to have the blocks nearby, but not using them for the setup until I know what I need. So spine is long on the in-breath. And as I exhale, I'm just going to lazily start to curl my way forward, rounding through the spine, so permission to slouch. And then notice the gaps that I need to fill. And for some of us, it might be that we're feeling pretty bendy, so we can stack our blocks on top of each other. For most of us, we're going to be a little bit higher up, so blocks can go either side of our feet, second or third height perhaps. Cushion, bolster, whatever you're working with today can rest on top, and just leaning forward over the cushion, forehead or side of the head resting down. And some of you might even take your bolsters onto the thin end so that the long length of the cushion can support you in a more higher position away from the ground here. So go ahead and just take your time to settle into your version of the shape. Taking as long as you need to find the level of support that your body needs today. Making those little micro adjustments as you need. And then once you find your position, just letting the head rest, letting the head feel supported. And then just closing your eyes. Letting the first minute or so of being in the shape be one of exploring what there is to feel in the body, what there is to notice. It might be feelings of release coming into the tissues already. It might be feelings of spaciousness. Some of us might have awareness of areas that feel a little resistant, a little challenging, whether that be physically or mentally. And whatever it is you notice, just see if you can stay there in this place of calmness. Coming back to the breath as an anchor for your mind. I'm aware that I'm breathing in. I'm aware that I'm breathing out as many times as you need. And some of you might notice sensation arriving into the inside line of the legs here. And this shape stimulates the kidney and liver meridian lines in terms of Chinese medicine. And the spleen runs along here as well. So this shape invites us to let go of our fears, let go of our worries, the emotions connected into these meridian lines. And some of you might feel it through the length of the spine, whether that be the lower back or the middle back, maybe even up towards the upper back or neck area. As and when you feel like there's a little bit of freedom, a little bit of space arriving into the body, feel free to adjust your props to sink a little deeper into the shape. So that might mean turning the blocks to a lower height perhaps, or maybe moving things a little further away from center here. We're in our final minute or so, so just exploring how the shape feels as those first few minutes have already passed by. Noticing those areas that you can physically soften into. This practice gives us the opportunity to notice things that sometimes we are too busy to notice in our moving practices or day-to-day life. So take time to slow down, really journey inward, explore. The breath slows down just a little bit as we come to the final 3 breaths in this particular shape. And when the third breath is complete here, just slowly, slowly beginning to roll yourself up away from your props. And let's just move the props to the side here. Once they're out of the way, guide the hands under the knees so the feet come to the ground, knees come together, leaning back into the hands. And we're going to windshield wipe the legs from side to side here. A little bit of movement back through the legs. And that was our journey into the inside line of the leg. So now we're going to travel around to the front of the hip. So here's how that looks. I'm going to take my blocks either side of my mat on the third height to begin with. And I'm going to come into what we call up dragon to begin with. So my right leg is going to come forward, left leg is behind. And if you've got sensitive knees, feel free to put a cushion or blanket there. Blocks come in close to the midline of the body. So there's this feeling of lifting up through the chest here. And this is going to be our starting point. So just start to arrive into your version of up dragon here. Feet relaxed to the ground, chest lifted, gaze forward. And yet then once you're settled, just gently letting the eyelids close here. Fingers are light and relaxed around the blocks themselves. Notice how it feels as you start to feel this gentle unraveling of fascia, this connective tissue through the front of the left hip here. Slowing things down. And if you start to feel like you can go a little closer to the ground, of course, turning those blocks to a lower height. Sometimes this can be an area of tissue that releases quite freely. About 2 or 3 more breaths in this more upright position. You're relaxed around the jaw, around the neck. Shoulders are relaxed away from the ears. One more breath. And then let's keep the position with the legs. Just begin to walk the blocks forward, bringing the right hand and the block into the inside of the right foot and just wiggling that right foot over to the edge now. And some of us are going to move the blocks forward and stay on our hands. Some of us are going to manage to come down to our forearms. And some of us might come onto the outside edge of that right foot, letting the knee draw outward a little here. So we come into what we call winged dragon. And we're just reaching the chest forward in a really non-active way, just this awareness of openness. Fingers are relaxed. Gaze can be down, gaze can be forward, but once you've found the position where the head can relax, the neck can relax, just closing your eyes. Maintaining this idea of feeling sensation through the front of that left hip now. And some of you who are on the outside edge of your right foot, you may notice sensation through the inner thigh. The primary focus of the shape is the front of the hip, and this is getting into the stomach meridian line here through the front of the leg. Stomach meridian links into the spleen, so the emotion connected to that continues to be one of releasing our worries. Different emotion attached to 3 out of the 4 areas of the hips here. So know that as we start to unpack the tension, the tightness around the hips, we're also unpacking, from a Chinese medicine perspective, this ability to let go of our emotional blockages here. And just notice how the sensation starts to shift and evolve as the minutes here pass by. The more we relax the breath, the more space we find in the tissues as the nervous system knows that we're in this safe space. 3 more breaths here. Notice how it feels in the final moments. Just 1 more breath now. And when that breath is finished, let the right foot return to the earth. Come on back up to your hands and then guide the blocks back towards your body. And you're just going to step the right leg back next to the left and just pause for a moment, sitting on your shins or bring the bottom to the ground, hands resting onto the lap, and just close your eyes just for a moment here. Spine stays nice and long, collarbone nice and broad, and just check in. How do I feel? How do I feel about moving into the second side? Just noticing what comes up for us, any sensations physically in the body. Just taking time to pause every now and then to really notice the benefits. Take another breath here. When that exhale is complete, let's just gently open the eyes, make our way to the second side of the same shape. So blocks come back to center, third height. Now we're stepping the left leg forward and we're bending into that left knee so that the sensation is coming through the front of the right hip. And the blocks are nice and close into the body, the belly is relaxed, the chest is almost lifted, and the hands are kind of pushing into the blocks here. There's this nice opening of the chest. Gaze can be forward or just gently tucking the chin, whatever feels most sensible for your body here. Fingers are relaxed. There's a tendency to grip, to hold on, so let the fingers relax. Notice if you're pushing yourself away from the ground or if you're just letting yourself kind of go with the flow. Become aware of that melting of the fascia away from the bones, creating this easier sense of glide through the front of the hip. The more we relax, the more space we find. The more we grip and hold on, the harder it is to access these deeper layers of tissue. Make the adjustments with the blocks as you feel like there's space arriving in. Noticing briefly how one side feels compared to the other. 2 more breaths in this upright shape. 1 more. And then guide your blocks with your hands to the inside of the left foot, moving them forward. Wiggle the left foot over to the edge of the mat, maybe coming onto the outer edge of the foot. Maybe staying on the foot, choice is yours, coming down towards forearms or staying on hands if you prefer. And just notice how this feels here. Notice how it feels through the front of that right hip. The fingers are relaxed. Gaze down, forwards, wherever feels good for the neck, and just closing the eyes once you're there, softening the space around the eyes, around the mouth. Continuing our work into the stomach meridian line, so this invitation to let go of worries. And this invitation, when we let go of worries, to notice the self-talk that we pay attention to. In Chinese medicine, the stomach meridian line is responsible for the digestion of our food, the absorption of goodness, the taking of nutrients from what food we do give ourselves. But it's also responsible for the digestion of our thoughts, our emotions. And when we tax our system with bad food, unhealthy products, as well as unhealthy thoughts, we're taxing our system in such a way that there becomes this stagnant energy. Things can't move on out of the body. So when we come to shapes like this, we're inviting space physically, but we're also creating this highway in which the chi, the energy, can flow more efficiently. So for the final moments here, think of how you talk to yourself, what messages you absorb, what you take to heart, what you're able to let go of. And as you move into this new week, just paying a little attention to that from time to time. 3 more breaths here. Last one. As you finish that breath, just slowly, slowly letting the left foot come back down to earth. Coming back up to hands if you're not there already, moving those blocks back to center and then carrying that left leg back through next to the right one. Sitting back on your heels, hands resting on the lap, sitting tall, closing your eyes and just pausing for a moment. How do I feel? What do I feel? Just the feelings of heat or coolness, tingling, whatever it may be. Feeling of space, calmness. Noticing what there is to notice for another 2 breaths. And those 2 breaths are complete, just slowly starting to open the eyes. And now just walk yourself to the middle of your mat and guide the bottom to the mat. And then legs coming out ahead of us. So we're taking our attention now to the back of the leg as we come into caterpillar pose. So your blocks and your cushions are within reach. And I want you to just let the legs fall in whichever direction they naturally fall. Okay, so you're not holding the legs up. The legs are relaxed, muscles are switched off. And then sit tall on an inhale and then lazily curling your way forward into your exhale. So you're rounding through the spine here and just noticing how that feels. And then filling the gaps. So it might be that you're going to set your blocks up on the inside of the legs, head resting onto them. And if that feels enough, great, stay there. If you need to be a little higher, then blocks can be on the second or third height. Closer into your body lifts you up more. Further away takes you deeper. And then, of course, cushions can rest on top, or you can take them onto the thin end, and then they become a little longer and more supportive. Your arms resting onto the blocks here, as if by design, which of course it is. And then just take your time, settle in. Settle into your version of the shape. Knowing that it's exactly that, your version of the practice, and whatever it is that feels good in your body, just noticing that, noticing how it shifts and changes, nothing about how it looks being important here. And can you soften the belly? Can you relax all of those areas that sometimes we can be programmed to grip and hold onto? Let the muscles above the knees relax. They're used to being switched on to keep the legs straight, so let them know it's okay to turn off now. I like to take the elbows a little wider than the shoulders. It gives me a feeling of ease through the upper back. Anytime you feel like there's a little space arriving into the body, just go ahead and move your props a little further away from you, or indeed turn the blocks to a lower height here. And you'll start to be aware with time this feeling of release through the whole of the back line of the body here. It's just this feeling of space arriving anywhere through the back of the legs, the lower back, the back of the neck. And coming to become more in tune with this idea of nurturing benefits of these forward folds that we practice each week together. Invitation to slow down, to check in. Notice how it feels now compared to the first moments of the practice, in terms of your state of mind, the depth of your breath. And then notice how the physical body feels compared to when you first started this shape, several minutes into it now. Notice if your mind is able to stay present in these moments of stillness, or if that's when the mind starts to wander away. Three more breaths here. One more. When that third breath is complete, just ever so slowly beginning to roll yourself up away from your props, guiding the props out of the way. And let's just, with the help of the hands, bring a bend back into the knees. Let the feet come to the mat. Lean back into the hands on the ground. And we're going to windshield wipe the legs side to side here. Just getting a little movement back through the tissues, a little freedom. And we have worked our way around 3 areas of the hip now, the inner thigh, the back of the leg, the front of the hip. I want to work into this outer hip area now. So what I'm going to do is offer 2 shapes for you. First shape is a square pose with the shin parallel to the top of our mat, and then stacking the other shin on top, okay? And hopefully you can see the black against the black. And I want you to fill any gaps between the knee and the ankle that are bound to be there with blocks or cushions, first or second height here. You can also change the shape to be this one, shoelace, with the knees on top of each other, or feel free to kind of let the knees be away from each other, almost like a crooked cross-leg position. And then your other option, of course, is just cross-legged. Okay, so 3 variations there for you to play with. And have your blocks within reach. So you're going to sit nice and tall. Same idea as with each of the shapes so far. Whichever option in the legs, same thing. Sitting tall as you breathe in. And then just lazily beginning to curl your way forward. And as you curl your way forward, you'll feel this sensation through the outer right hip in particular. And then fill the gaps between your head and the ground. So sometimes that's going to be blocks stacked on top of each other like this. Sometimes it's going to be the blocks on the second or third height in front of your legs, or either side of them if you've chosen to be in shoelace, leaning over the cushions which are resting on top. Okay, and then remember, of course, the thin end of the cushion can rest on the floor and your head is resting on the other end of this one. So take your time, settle into the shape. A shorter hold for this particular one. And just notice this feeling of resistance and release, this idea of finding a sense of comfort despite any stronger sensations that you might be experiencing here. So choosing our reactions to the shapes being an important part of the practice as well. Knowing that we often are out of control in so many areas of life itself. And yet we can always choose to be in control of our reactions, our responses. Choosing how we respond to life's stimuli, life's challenges, which are inevitably going to keep on coming. And just finding out our ways of responding calmly. How can we train ourselves to be a little more at ease with discomfort, so that we feel as though we can manage stress in a healthier fashion. So let the breath relax, slow down. And tongue away from the roof of the mouth. There's a softness around the forehead, around the eyes, shoulders away from the ears. Fingers and toes nice and relaxed. And some of you might notice it through the inner thigh as well as the outer hip. Some of you might even feel it on both of the outer hip areas. And some of you might be feeling it through the lower back or anywhere along the back, to be honest here. Anytime you happen to find a little space, feel free to just move a little deeper into that space. And it can be moving things away from center or to a different height. And as soon as you arrive, just coming back to that stillness. You can let the jaw gently wiggle a little from side to side, slowly and mindfully. Reminding yourself to let go of tension again and again. Using the breath as an anchor for a busy mind. 3 more breaths on this side. And when the third breath is complete for you, just beginning to roll yourself up a little vertebrae by vertebrae, and just taking your props to the side as you find them. And then with the help of your hands, from whichever shape you're in, just unwind the legs, place them out ahead of you, feet to the floor. Hands come then to the ground behind you. And let's do that same action we've done all class, windshield wiping side to side with the knees. Okay, just a little bit of an invitation of space and movement. And then as soon as you feel ready and able, we're going to move to the second side. And this is our last side of the practice before Shavasana. So make the adjustments that you need to. I've got my right shin underneath here, left shin stacking on top for square pose. Remember, you've got the option of left knee roughly on top of left knee, or that kind of crooked position with the legs here as well, or simply cross-legged with the other shin in front this time. Okay, so find your shape, take your time, can be different from one side to the other as well. Sitting tall on the breath in, feeling any gaps that you notice, and then just slowly curling forward through the spine, and then setting your props up in a way that allows you to be supported here. And allowing it also to be different in how it might be needing support on the second side to the first side. Almost thinking about this as a separate shape, a fresh moment in time, which it is, of course. Inviting all of those areas that have a habit or tendency to tighten, to just relax, release. Finding that sense of stillness that allows the nervous system to know that we're safe. And when the nervous system knows we're safe, we start to find this freedom in the physical tissues here as well. We move ourselves into a different part of our nervous system. Recognizes that it's safe for us to move out of this constant fight or flight mode that so many of us spend extended periods of time in. And that's the beauty of this practice. We get to choose to shift gear, to slow down, to focus, to recharge. Anytime there's freedom in the body to move a little deeper, making adjustments. Notice how the shape feels physically after the first few minutes pass by. Three more breaths on this second side. Three more breaths. And when that third breath is complete, let's just slowly roll ourselves up away from our props and just move the cushion a little bit further down the mat here. Blocks to the side, unwind those legs. Feet to the ground. We're going to make our way to Shavasana. And what I want you to do is just move a little more to the center of the mat. Place the cushion behind your knees. Make sure there's a little space behind you to lie down, and then go ahead and arrive into your Shavasana. Taking up as much space as you need to here. Arms can come out wide, or the elbows can bend, hands resting on the belly. Adding extra layers if you need to. Closing your eyes, slowing down. Just taking this opportunity to let the whole of the back line of the body just melt down to the ground. This feeling of support beneath you as you slow down. Settling into stillness here. And those of you who have the time to spend a little longer in Shavasana, feel free to stay here for as long as you can. And those of you finishing the practice with me today, just slowly starting to bring a small movement into the fingers and the toes. And gently reaching the arms all the way up overhead, this full body stretch. Drawing the knees in towards center, giving them a hug as you roll a little from side to side, back and forth. Eventually coming to roll over and rest for a moment on whichever side feels best. And keeping your eyes closed, using your hands to push the ground away as you lift yourself up to a comfortable seat. Just taking a moment to pause to notice how you feel. In the body, in the mind, how the breath is doing. Feeling if we can carry this feeling of calmness, this feeling of spaciousness and awareness with us into the rest of our day, the rest of our weekend, the rest of this brand new week ahead of us. Bringing our hands together at heart center. Bowing our head to our hands in gratitude for the practice, in gratitude for our health. Namaste.